the beginning, there was absolutely nothing wrong. No bad dreams, no strange feelings, no warnings, just a normal house in a normal neighborhood with normal people living inside it. This happened in the early 2000s. A married couple, Mark and Emily, had just moved into a 2-story home. It wasn't old. It wasn't creepy. It didn't have a history. It was just affordable. The first few weeks were quiet, peaceful. At night, they'd sit downstairs, watch TV, talk about work. Sometimes, Emily would say the house felt too quiet. Mark would laugh and say, "That's what peace feels like." The first sound happened on a Thursday night. A soft thump from upstairs. Mark paused the TV. They listened. Nothing else happened. Old houses make noise. Wood expands. Air moves. That's what they told themselves. The sounds came back a few nights later. This time, it wasn't a thump. It sounded like someone shifting their weight, like a footstep. That stopped halfway. Emily asked, "Did you hear that?" Mark nodded. But when he checked upstairs, everything was normal. Bedroom empty, bathroom empty, closet empty. They went back to bed. That night, Emily barely slept. She said she felt like someone was standing in the hallway, not watching, just there. Weeks passed. The sounds became routine, always late, always upstairs, always stopping the moment they listened closely. Then one night, something changed. Mark woke up around 2:30 a.m. He heard whispering, not loud, not clear, but definitely a voice. He assumed Emily was talking in her sleep. He rolled over and asked quietly, "Did you say something?" Emily didn't answer. The whisper came again, this time from above them. He sat up in bed. His heart started racing. He spoke louder. "Hello?" From upstairs, a voice replied, "I'm up here." The voice was calm, almost casual. Mark froze. Emily sat up instantly. She whispered, "Who was that?" Mark didn't answer. They stared at the ceiling. No footsteps, no movement, just silence. Mark grabbed a flashlight and slowly walked upstairs. Every step felt louder than it should have. Bedroom empty, bathroom empty, closet empty. Nothing. When he came back downstairs, Emily was pale. She asked him something that made his stomach drop. "Why were you talking to someone upstairs?" Mark said, "I thought it was you." Emily shook her head. She said, "I heard someone answering you." They didn't sleep after that. The next morning, Mark checked the house again. That's when he noticed something strange. The attic door was slightly open. He was sure it had been closed. They called a contractor to inspect it. The man climbed up with a flashlight. At first, he said everything looked fine. Then he went quiet. He asked Mark to come closer. Behind the insulation, there was a narrow crawl space. Hidden, inside were blankets, empty water bottles, canned food. Someone had been living there. The police were called immediately. They searched the attic and the crawl spaces. They found fingerprints, fresh ones. They also found small holes drilled into the ceiling. One of them was directly above the bedroom. Police believed the man would move around at night, watch them, listen, sometimes respond. They never caught him. No neighbors noticed anything. No cameras saw anyone leave. The couple moved out that same week. They left furniture behind, clothes, photos. Years later, Emily admitted something she had never told Mark. She said that sometimes, when Mark was at work, she heard footsteps upstairs, and once, she heard someone whisper her name. She never answered. She said she was too afraid that if she did, someone would answer back. So if your house ever feels too quiet and you hear a sound you can't explain, don't assume it's harmless. Because sometimes, the scariest thing isn't being alone. It's realizing you never were. I want to be very clear about something before I tell you this. I'm not someone who scares easily. I don't believe every strange sound has meaning. I don't panic over shadows or creaks. That's why it took me so long to understand what was really happening. This was back in 2014. Oregon, small town, quiet street. My wife and I had just bought our first house. After years of renting, that house felt like proof that life was finally stable. 2 bedrooms, 1 floor, an older build, but well-maintained. The kind of place where you imagine growing old. The first month was peaceful, almost too peaceful. And that's something I think about now. Because when something dangerous is already close to you, it doesn't rush. It waits. The first thing I noticed was the temperature. I would set the thermostat before bed. Every night, same number. And in the morning, it would be different, only slightly. Not enough to feel dramatic, just enough to make you doubt yourself. I told myself I was misremembering. Stress does that. Then food started disappearing. Not entire meals, just pieces. Half a sandwich gone, a slice of cheese missing, milk finishing faster than it should. At first, we joked about it. Then we quietly started accusing each other. That was the first mistake. Because when you blame each other, you stop paying attention to everything else. The first night my wife really scared me wasn't dramatic. She didn't scream. She just asked me something while lying in bed. "Do you walk around at night?" I laughed. "I don't sleepwalk. Never have." But she didn't laugh. She told me she had been waking up randomly. No dreams, no sounds, just awake, with the feeling that the house wasn't empty, not occupied, aware. I didn't know how to respond to that. A few days later, I noticed something in the bathroom. Fingerprints, on the mirror, on the inside, low, smudged, not mine, not hers. We don't have kids. I wiped them away and stood there longer than I needed to, listening. The house was silent, too silent. I worked night shifts a few times a week. That meant my wife was alone most nights. That's when she started hearing it. Not footsteps, something slower, like pressure shifting, wood bending slightly, always coming from inside the walls, not the attic, not under the floor. Inside, we brought in professionals, an inspector, an electrician, a plumber. Each one told us the same thing. "This house is solid." One even joked, "Nothing's living in here." I wish he hadn't said that out loud. The first time I felt real fear was the night I came home early. The front door was locked, but the back door was slightly open, just enough to notice. Inside, the air felt wrong. Not cold, not damp. Human. Like someone had been breathing there for a long time. That night, we didn't argue. We whispered. Because something about raising our voices felt unsafe. Like the house was listening. We installed cameras, not because we believed something insane was happening, because we needed proof that it wasn't. Living room, kitchen, hallway. The first 2 nights were uneventful, just darkness and static. Then the third night came, 3:11 a.m. The hallway camera glitched, for less than a second. When it came back, something moved, not walked, slid, along the wall. We slowed the footage down, frame by frame. What we saw didn't make sense. A shape, too narrow to be standing, too tall to be crawling normally, almost folded, like a body that knew the space too well. That's when my wife started crying. Not loudly, quietly, because we both realized the same thing. If it could move like that, it had been here a long time. We called the police. They searched the house. At first, nothing. Then one officer pressed against a section of wall near the laundry room. Barely. Behind it was a hollow space. A crawl passage. Not part of the original design, wide enough for a person to move sideways. Inside they found food wrappers, a flashlight, a phone charger plugged into an outlet I didn't know existed, scratch marks, all along the walls. The officer looked at me and said something I'll never forget. Someone's been staying here. They followed the passage. It ran behind the walls, behind our bedroom, behind the bathroom mirror. That's when I understood the fingerprints. At the end of the passage, they found him. A man, late 30s, thin, dirty, eyes adjusting slowly to light. He didn't run, didn't resist. He just looked at us and said, "I knew when you were asleep." My wife collapsed. During questioning, the truth came out. He used to live in the house years ago, lost it, never left. When we moved in, he adapted, learned our routines, our breathing, our fights. Before they took him away, he said one last thing. "I wasn't hiding from you. I was living with you." We sold the house within a month. We didn't watch the rest of the footage. An officer warned us not to. Sometimes, he said, it's better not to know how close someone really was. Even now, I can't sleep in silence, because silence reminds me of something I learned too late. You don't always hear danger. Sometimes, it listens from inside the walls. So tonight, when your house is quiet, ask yourself something. Are you alone? Or has something already learned how to live with you? This happened in 2008. A woman living alone in a quiet apartment complex. No roommates. No pets. Just silence. She worked long hours, left early in the morning, came home late at night. And that's when she started noticing small things. Food going missing. Milk finishing faster than usual. Bread disappearing. At first, she blamed herself. She told herself she was tired. That stress messes with your memory. But the feeling didn't go away. One night she came home and noticed the bathroom light was on. She was sure she had turned it off. She stood there for a few seconds, listening. Nothing, so she let it go. A few days later, she noticed muddy footprints near the sink. They weren't hers. That's when fear slowly crept in. Not panic, not screaming, just a quiet realization. Someone else might be here. She didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, she bought a small hidden camera. She placed it in the corner of her kitchen, facing the cabinets. That night, she barely slept. The next morning, she went to work like normal. When she came back, the house looked untouched. She almost laughed at herself. Almost. Later that night, she sat on her bed and opened the camera footage. At first, nothing. Hours passed and fast forward. Then, at exactly 2:16 a.m., the screen changed. A cabinet door near the ceiling slowly opened. Not wide, just enough. Something moved inside. Then a man crawled out. Thin, dirty, bare feet touching her kitchen floor. He moved carefully, like he had done this before. He opened the fridge, drank milk straight from the bottle, ate food with his hands. Then he went to the bathroom. He stood in front of the mirror and smiled. She dropped the phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely dial the police. Officers arrived within minutes. They searched the apartment. At first, they found nothing. Then one officer noticed scratch marks near the ceiling. They pushed the cabinet. A hidden space opened. Inside was a narrow gap between the walls. Blankets, food wrappers, a small bag of clothes. The man was found curled inside, alive. He had been living there for months. He knew her schedule. When she left, when she slept, when police questioned him, he said something that still haunts people. I never wanted to scare her. I just needed a place to stay. That's the part that chills you, because fear wasn't an accident. It was a choice. After that night, the woman never returned to the apartment. She moved cities, changed her routine, but she later admitted something. The worst part wasn't knowing he was there. It was realizing every night she felt alone. She never really was. So tonight, before you turn off the lights, look around. Because sometimes, the scariest thing in your house isn't what you see. It's what's been hiding